ESPN anchor and analyst and part-time feminist Malika Andrews was recently invited to this podcast right here, Dinners with DeMar. Now it's hosted by NBA player DeMar DeRozan. He's currently playing for the Kings. And they sat down, had a conversation. Now, flat out, I think that this woman is a complete and utter clown, but I want to give this podcast a shot. You guys can't see it right now, but this podcast is currently getting ratioed 500 likes. I believe it's at 500 dislikes. And my guess is that as this view count grows, the dislikes are going to go up even higher. Why do you think that she's a clown, you say? Well, she has a history of throwing black male athletes and other newscasters under a bus, and then when questioned about it, plays this, oh, woe is me, victimhood mentality bullshit that has typically worked within mainstream media. But anyway, I want to take a look at a couple of snippets within this podcast right here. And as well as at the end of this, I'm going to put a video, a compilation of what it is that I'm talking about in case you are not familiar. Let's get active on this one. Without further ado.
I just think that so oftentimes, like, I'm a strong black woman, black girl magic, right, is such a common phrase that we hear nowadays. And by the way, we are. And by the way, we do. We possess that magic. We are that strength. And at the same time, there's some days that I am a sad black woman, and I am a tired black woman, and I am a don't want to get out of bed black woman. And those multitudes exist. I think that we've sort of created this rallying cry, black girl magic, but sometimes it's black girl hard work.
Get her off of the goddamn air. When people start talking about this black girl magic shit, I usually just say, like, what exactly does that mean? How is it that you're posturing that this is an actual thing? And are other races of people allowed to say it as well? Is there also a white girl magic shit? Is there an Indian girl magic? Or do you actually get mad when they call themselves magic as well? I think that this level of aggrandization is cringe-worthy unless you're in an echo chamber of other people that doesn't check you for your bullshit. It doesn't exist. There is no magic. You get magic placed within your life dependent upon the value that you contribute to this life, your family, or if you're religious or spiritual, it is bestowed upon you by the God that you believe in. Otherwise, shut up with all of this shit. It's also hilarious to me that the majority of these people are often Christians. But yeah, in case you're wondering, Malika, this is why so many black men have chosen not to watch your bullshit ass show anymore. You speak nebulous shit such as black girl magic while throwing black men under the bus. We look at your actions, not what the hell that you say. And based off of the difference between the two, it makes you a liar. Let's go.
And so I think that for black women, where so much is put, you're at the intersection of so many different places, pulled in so many different directions. Not only are you and I and we experiencing
I have the top newscaster spot with an ESPN. Oh, I am such a DEI victim. Oh, woe is me.
The pull of what blackness means and the parameters that are put on us in our blackness. But it's also being a woman and everything that comes with that, and that intersectionality, and trying to hold both of these things at the same time, celebrate them while also feeling the weight. That's a lot. It's a lot to try to figure out how to exactly manage in any given day, and I certainly don't do it perfectly, but I feel it. And, for me specifically, as DeMar and I talk about, one of the ways in which we say mental health, that's really nebulous and all-consuming. For me, it is depression, it is anxiety, and it's an eating disorder. And I don't see very many black women who say, hey, you know what, that is what I struggle with. Curviness and thickness, and that is something that is so celebrated in the black community, and yet it's my specific struggle. And so I think it's all of those things to me. That's where I see this conversation, I hope, fitting in and helping someone.
Honestly, it's awesome that athletes can now create podcasts to have conversations with people, but the issue is accountability. Asking them questions in order to dive down deep into the actual ways that they think about shit, instead of just being buddy-buddy and chummy with everybody that they bring up on the platform. But yeah, complete and utter word salad to talk about this black girl magic phenomena, and at the same time, outline some real things that some people deal with this depression and anxiety as well as eating disorder, to me is outrageous. How about kill the black girl magic shit and just talk about it to us like a human being? But anyway, later in the conversation, they begin to speak about how they handle criticism. Let's watch.
Game or
You gonna play those games?
are you a people pleaser?
Yes, and that's part of my problem.
That's mine too.
You
Like
know what I mean?
I care a lot what people think, and I've worked on it and I've gotten better at it, and I have tried really hard to pour myself into the idea that those that matter don't mind and those that mind don't matter, and to have a circle of people that you can listen to and trust for feedback to pierce through the noise. But I don't think that folks are meant to know. There was a time when you had to, if you turn the ball over at the end of a game, and if I wanted, as a fan, and I wanted to complain about that, thank you so much. And if I wanted to complain about that, I would have to pick up the phone. I would have to call the practice facility, ask to get through the person who answered the phone to maybe the team. There are all these layers, right? I'd have to write a letter saying, I'm so angry, DeMar turned the ball over. I'd have to call a news station and say, I didn't like how Malika, whatever the case may be. And now there's just this constant cacophony online that exists at the touch of a button. And no one is meant to know that much about what people think of them. And I've gotten much better at not looking. There was a time in which I would search my name, this, that, and the other. I've quit that, but it doesn't mean you don't feel it. I have no idea how you do it with the amount of people. Like, I think if I feel that, I can only imagine how that feels for you and how you deal with that.
See, I think your position is a lot tougher because a lot of times, like, you know, you the one kind of, you got to bring up these topics. You got to have these conversations in a sense to where it's like, I'm going out to play, and for that 2 hours I'm on the court, I could just go home after that. I don't got to turn on anything. A lot of times, you know, I have moments where I watch a game on mute. You know, at this point, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you have to protect yourself.
Yeah, you got to. So, like, you know, just you being a woman in that field, I just feel like it's so tough now because it's like,
Sky.
like, you have a world kind of combating whatever topic y'all have to talk about for that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, let's see what Stephen A. have to say, you know. Let's go against everything he's saying. Now it makes it everybody else become a reporter in real time.
Yeah.
Whether if it's picking up their phone saying, oh, she said this, and it's like, you know, it's like it's such a
I
feel like
hear
it's
you.
a lose-lose in a sense.
I mean, I hope that, like, I try very hard to make it so that the things that I've experienced, I try to keep that in mind when I'm talking about players, right? I try to have that empathy
For sure.
and understand that I have a job to do, but also understand, like, I'm not here to play gotcha.
For sure.
I say you've heard me say this before, I always say, I want to be two things. I want to be accurate and I want to be fair.
For sure.
As laughable as what that is, I think that it's interesting that he brought up Stephen A. Smith. We're going to get into in a second here why exactly that is ironic as hell, specifically when speaking about Malika Andrews, because Stephen had to check her after she did this feminist victimization shit. But what she's doing is called revisionist history. She's trying to change the public perception of what it is of the things that have actually happened over time. And instead of taking accountability, instead of apologizing for it, she's just trying to change the narrative by deflection while painting herself as the victim in these situations, while this gentleman sits over there and agrees that it's harder for women. Here's the thing. A woman doing this job in front of a majority male audience has it easier than if a man is doing this job, if she is good at her job and if she can speak for and to that audience. Just within the male content space, men have to work harder to achieve the same level of viewer counts and subscribers than female counterparts. Huge L, especially that accurate and fair shit.
And if I'm not one of those two things, you might not always like me, but this is my number, please call me. And people have called and they've said that. And I say that oftentimes to before, especially before I'm talking to folks about something that is sensitive or tough, because these things come up. And it is hurtful. Like, I think that's okay to say sometimes. It hurts. even it doesn't matter if it is someone who is credible or someone with a big platform, or if it's someone in their mom's basement just firing off a post. Sometimes it is hurtful when that seeps through, particularly for me when it's not true.
Right.
And that's been the hardest part for me sometimes is stomaching the falsehoods, particularly, you know,
This is hilarious.
You hate black men, or think that couldn't be farther from the truth, and using my family or the way that my family looks as some sort of evidence of that. And that is just untrue.
For sure.
And it's just unkind. And, you know, we all have jobs to do, and we do our best. I try to do my best to show up every day in a way that you guys know what I'm about. And that doesn't mean that I've covered every story perfectly. It doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes, but I think I'm pretty good at saying to you guys in particular, could have been better there.
No question.
And that's, I think, what I hope we can keep as social media continues to be bigger in the world, that kindness and that humanity that I worry sometimes we're losing.
Numerous documented examples that we're about to go through of the exact opposite of what it is that she's saying. Nevertheless, respect women that show respect to you, not from their words, but from their actions.
Detroit Pistons bad boy John Sally once jokingly said the NBA stood for nothing but Africans. When he uttered that remark, the NBA was 86% African American. As of 2023, that demographic has shrunk to 73%. Isn't it ironic that a league that is still overwhelmingly African American has ownership and a commissioner that does not represent the majority of its players? Another irony is one of ESPN's most enigmatic and controversial personalities is a black woman who has made some pretty interesting statements about black men, and she covers the NBA. Malika Andrews has a rare, obscene, public, and clinical contempt of African American men. Malika Andrews covering the NBA is like a sexist man being a panel member on The View. It's overwhelming. A very brief check of her history will confirm why Malika Andrews is one of the most hated NBA analysts. Malika Andrews, journalist for the ESPN network, has been a focal point of a lot of hate in the last couple of years. What usually happens between players and experts has now become a battle between two top media figures that associate with the NBA. But the journalist has been caught up in a controversy in the past as well. Back in 2019, Giannis Antetokounmpo was blatant about his feelings towards Andrews after an article she had written about him. Her piece speculated that the Greek freak will leave the Milwaukee Bucks if they do not make improvements to the team.
Malika Andrews, ESPN. For both of you guys, I'm curious, you guys have talked a lot about how at this point, you know, sometimes it takes experience. I'm wondering if now that you have some of that experience, if you see more validity to that point, or what you think about that now that you've gone through it.
This article was fresh when the Bucks lost to the 2019 champions Toronto Raptors. During the press conference, Giannis was asked a question by Malika Andrews on experience. He simply did not bother to answer, got up, and walked out of the room, leaving Chris Middleton confused. Now, the issue that got her in deep water was when she called out analyst Stephen A. Smith for voicing his opinion on the Boston Celtics publicizing Ime Udoka's scandal. The journalist clapped back on live broadcast saying, "Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop." What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all the information here.
Let me be very clear. I don't appreciate where you're going with that. I'm not blaming anybody but Ime Udoka. He deserves, the fact of the matter is, I've said he deserved to be fired if they were going to fire him. If you're not going to fire him, then don't fire him. My issue is all of this being publicized. The point that I'm trying to make is just like you're not mentioning. Excuse me. I listened to you. You're the one telling me to stop on my show. It ain't happening.
Smith went on to reiterate his prior points, specifically bemoaning the Celtics publicizing the story. After going neck and neck against each other for several years, Chris Paul and Stephen Curry are now teammates. Had such a scenario even been suggested in the past, it would have been termed nonsensical. The NBA business is certainly full of surprises.
Essentially, Malika was trying to posture that Stephen A. Smith was blaming the women and not Ime Udoka for the inappropriate relationship, which he absolutely did not do. But through her feminist lens, the bias or the way that she perceived it was that he did.
And brutal at the same time. But by highlighting some moments of the epic battles Steph and Paul shared, while interviewing him on ESPN after the trade, host Malika Andrews found herself on the receiving end. During an interview with Chris Paul on ESPN, Andrews asked him about being teammates with Steph. To the fans, everything was great about the interview, except the video that the channel decided to air while having Paul on the channel. The video showed Curry breaking Paul's ankles and making him fall to the ground. Perhaps the blatant disrespect towards CP3 didn't sit well with the fans, and they slammed Malika Andrews for lowlighting the point guard. She was the subject of some social media backlash after she asked NBA Commissioner Adam Silver about the Ja Morant gun flashing video, which led to the Memphis Grizzlies star late a suspension later on. Silver appeared on ESPN as the San Antonio Spurs were awarded the #1 overall pick in the 2023 NBA Draft. Andrews asked Silver about his meeting with Morant after the Grizzlies guard was suspended for the first time flashing a gun in a Denver nightclub.
Honestly, I was shocked when I saw this weekend that video. Now, we're in the process of investigating it, and we'll figure out exactly what happened to the best we can then. The video's a bit grainy and all that, but I'm assuming the worst.
He said that he and Morant talked openly and honestly about the consequences that could stem from waving a firearm around. While the question seemed pertinent given the situation, some NBA fans were not happy with it. Andrews faced some backlash on social media. The 2023 NBA Draft was a joyous occasion, as players heard their names called by an NBA franchise. One of the names that was called was Alabama Crimson Tide star Brandon Miller, who was chosen #2 overall by outgoing Charlotte Hornets owner Michael Jordan. Miller's elite skill set is undeniable, as the 6'9" two-way wing has been linked to Los Angeles Clippers star Paul George for his smooth floor game. But all wasn't easy for the Antioch, Tennessee native who was involved in a murder case in January. While he was not charged in the still unresolved case, the controversy surrounding him was definitely something that teams probably brought up during his visits prior to the draft. And while that's protocol for each team to do their extensive homework on prospects, former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver Des Bryant wasn't feeling ESPN's Malika Andrews asking the panel this.
Miller, his name did surface in court testimony involving a case where his former teammate and another man, they've been indicted for capital murder in the fatal shooting of 23-year-old Jamia Harris in January. The University of Alabama has described Miller as a cooperating witness. How is this factoring, if at all, into how teams are evaluating him?
Bryant then tweeted this in response to Andrews' question. Curious question. Why was this brought up during the draft? Miller wasn't convicted of nothing. I'm sure you was told to bring it up, and the fact you went through with it, shake my head.
And mainstream media wonders, or maybe they don't even care because they just make so much damn money, but they wonder why they're losing eyes. And it's because their representatives, or in this case, their anchors, are controlled like little puppets on a string. To bring that up during this brother's most important day of his life up to this point is tasteless, but exactly something what a puppeteer would do. But fits in very nicely for a spineless puppet. Let's go.
That's been Andrews' MO since she joined NBA on ESPN, and this isn't the first time she's been called out by a former athlete for her actions. In April, Kwame Brown, the 2001 #1 overall pick by the Washington Wizards, came for Andrews for what he said was falsely trying to frame co-host Jalen Rose while on air of ESPN's NBA Today. In a video that's now gone viral, Brown had a lot to say.
That type of woman that Malika Andrews is, she is a representation of the worst type of woman in the world, in my opinion. You want to have an opinion on everything, you want to talk about everything, but then you want to tip the scale to where this feminist is ruling.
Right.
Jalen Rose did not put his hand in your armpit, ma'am. And if that was something that he did and you thought he did, and this man revealed you as his sister, then you might have wanted to talk to your brother off camera. Y'all better be careful about these women like this.
Dangerous.
At the time of Brown's rant, he'd been on a media responding tear, and anyone could get it. But in this instance, he was speaking some real truth, just as Brian is. While speaking to Kendrick Perkins about the Brooklyn Nets and Milwaukee Bucks game, she had to ask Big Perk about his opinions. After all, Kendrick is the analyst. And her question was regarding the player under the harshest of spotlights, Ben Simmons. And before Kendrick could even make his point, he started off with a snarking remark. Malika, instead of listening, did something rather egregious. So, Kendrick was asked what he expects out of Ben Simmons in the game, and Perk replied, "Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing." While that statement does not necessarily seem funny to Miss Andrews, it was so much so that she couldn't stop laughing and interrupted the ESPN analyst while he was speaking. Twitter took notice. Some even pointed out that if the tables were turned, Perk would be under fire. But is ESPN turning the blind eye to Malika? Nobody knows that yet. But her repeatedly pretentious behavior, interruptions, and snarky remarks might lead to her downfall, much to her chagrin. In 2020, Rachel Nichols' hotel room was bugged, and she lost a 20-plus year sports journalism career for comments she made about Maria Taylor. Nichols basically said that the only reason Taylor was assigned to cover the NBA Finals was due to her race. After the audio was leaked, Nichols was dismissed in disgrace, and Andrews began her ascent. ESPN needs to either rein her in or end her rampage of terror, unprofessionalism, and animus against the very people she is responsible for covering. She is free to feel the way she does, but allowing her unlimited access to a national and international platform to do so is inexcusable.
Right.
Hope you enjoyed the video, guys.
I actually think it's going to be interesting to see now that we're seeing so many of these corporations that are doing away with DEI practices on the back of the new administration that is coming in. If she's going to be with us for much longer in her current within her current positions. I would imagine that ESPN behind scenes is talking with her regarding some of these things that have been called out within this video, but they also, at least previously, were weighing her being a figurehead in trying to comply with DEI standards to have this particular figurehead. But again, now that things are going to be different going into the future, I wonder how much longer they're going to deal with the bullshit. But guys, leave me your comments down below. What do you think about this particular situation? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment box down below. That has been your video. Questions, comments, concerns. Y'all already know what to do. Me, go to turtlesandreviews@gmail.com. Until next time, YouTube. Peace.